Byju Raveendran may be voted out of his own company come Friday this week. That is, if the Byju's investors are able to meet and vote to oust the board, which is currently led by Raveendran, his wife and his brother. They need 50% plus one crucial vote in order for that ouster vote to come in favor of current investors and shareholders. It is going to be one of the crucial, emergency meetings, EGM in this case, that Byju Raveendran and his fate could be changed post which.
Right, and at this EGM, what we're talking about is that the board currently of Byju's now comprises of essentially three people. One is Mr. Byju Raveendran himself, two is his wife Divya Gokulnath, and three is Byju Raveendran's brother Byju Raveendran. And these three people put together have about 26% stake and voting rights and are the fundamental board members still left on the board. And as you rightly pointed out, 45% of the rest of the voting rights are held by the 45% stake of the investors. But bear in mind, they don't have voting rights. And at this extraordinary general meeting, the way it is structured, Shweta, is that at least two of the board members need to be present when the first time the EGM is called. And when those two members are not present, then it gets adjourned. And the extraordinary general meeting gets adjourned.
By a week.
And once it gets adjourned, at the next meeting again, if the board members then show or don't show up, then the basic quorum for the extraordinary meeting can be formed by the investors. But all said and done, it's going to be a difficult process. At best, what they say is that the investors can eventually take matters to the company law tribunal and talk about minority shareholder oppression and the mismanagement of the company's governance and financial affairs, all the issues that have been plaguing Byju's. So at this stage, I'm not really sure if the rest of the investors have the adequate rights and votes to oust Byju's Raveendran. And of course, the other question I have in mind is that once you oust Byju's Raveendran, what is the company going to be called? Not Byju's. I'm not really sure. The name of the company is Byju's. Yes, I mean,
it wouldn't be the first time a founder has been voted out of his own organization. But looking at the shareholding pattern once again, so you have the 25% stake, 26% stake, the majority stake that Byju Raveendran and his family holds, which is Divya Gokulnath, his wife, his brother Byju Raveendran.
Right.
The remainder of the 25%, and will come to subsequently the other 45%, 25% stake is currently in possession of the investors who have actually called for this extraordinary general meeting. But they do not have the voting rights. So, which leaves us with the 49% vote, of which 45% is independently held by other voters. We don't know of the remainder of 4%, I believe. But all in all, if you add up the numbers with all permutations and combinations,
it's not adding up.
It is not adding up.
Correct, absolutely, absolutely.
And even if let's say the current investors and stakeholders are able to convince each other, they don't seem to have enough numbers.
They don't seem to have enough numbers at this stage. A lot will depend upon how this EGM or extraordinary general meeting even happens. Will Byju's Raveendran show up? Will Byju Raveendran show up? Will Divya Gokulnath even show up for this meeting that's being called on this Friday? Will it get adjourned by a week, as you're talking about? If it gets adjourned, so then what happens? So it's going to be a several step process before Byju's Raveendran is finally voted out, Shweta. That's what it looks like right now. But what can definitely happen is matters being taken to the company law tribunal, National Company Law Tribunal, and the possibility of minority shareholder oppression coming up as an issue for Byju's.
Absolutely. And let's spend a minute on why the shareholders have actually called for this meeting. So they're alleging a number of things, number one of which is the governance issues, the compliance issues, the financial mismanagement. So you have Byju Raveendran.
Just about everything.
About everything. You have Byju Raveendran actually battling a lot of not just the financial woes that the company is going through, which we all know of by the way of various news reports on restructuring and him finding it difficult to even pay up the salaries of his current existing employees, of which he's already let go of at least 30 to 40% in the last 1 year or so. Other issues with respect to corporate governance have also come to limelight in the past couple of years.
So definitely, and there have been many calls saying that why not get a professional CEO to run Byju's? Why does Byju Raveendran have to be the person sitting and running the entire shop? This has been a question that's been on the minds of people for a while, ever since the downward spiral of Byju's began. So in that sense, that many have been asking questions of Byju's Raveendran. Why is he still being allowed to run the ship according to his whims and fancies? And Why his whims and fancies? What is the board right now? The board currently consists of his wife and his brother. So which basically means it's Mr. Byju Raveendran who continues to run the company despite all that's happened, from a valuation of $22 billion to just $1 billion or even lesser. From this dramatic fall of Byju's that has happened in any other company.
And a rights issue at about $200 million, which is far, far lower than the $1 billion valuation of the company, which was brought down again from $22 billion, as you rightly said.
Right. You can keep every news headline doesn't speak well for Mr. Byju Raveendran at all. And if at one stage, because of issues, somebody like Mr. Steve Jobs can be thrown out of Apple, there's enough and more reason for people like for somebody like Byju Raveendran to be ousted. The only question is the way the company is structured.
Right.
Will it allow it to happen?
Absolutely.